Let me tell you something powerful today, because this isn't just about relationships. It's about who you become in the process of loving, losing, and rising again. You see, we live in a world where some people run from connection. They crave love, but when it gets too close, too real, they back away, they disappear, they shut down. That's the avoidant pattern. But listen closely. Those same people, months or even years later, deeply regret walking away from the ones who embodied something they couldn't yet understand. And what are those qualities? It's the one who stayed calm in the storm, the one who didn't beg, didn't chase, but stood in their power, grounded, peaceful, knowing their worth. When chaos came, they didn't match it, they mastered it. That energy becomes unforgettable. It's the one who carried self-respect like armor. When the avoidant pulled away, they didn't crumble, they expanded. They said, I love you, but I love me too. That's not arrogance, that's divine alignment. That's the energy of someone who understands that love is never about losing yourself to keep someone else. It's the one who loved without possession, who said, go if you must, but my heart will stay open. That level of emotional maturity hits differently. It's not weakness, it's warrior love. Because when you love from freedom, you activate something ancient, something divine inside you. And then there's the one who grew, the one who took the pain and transmuted it into purpose, who used heartbreak as holy fire to forge strength, wisdom, and vision. The avoidant sees that growth from afar and realizes they didn't just lose a partner, they lost a teacher, a healer, a mirror of their higher self. Finally, it's the one who forgave, not because the other deserved it, but because they refused to let resentment poison their future. Gratitude became their weapon, joy became their rebellion. They walked away radiant. Listen, when you embody these traits, when you become this kind of human being, you shift from needing love to being love. And that's when everything changes. Those who once ran from you begin to feel the ache of absence because your presence was a sanctuary, and they traded it for safety that never existed. But here's the truth. Their regret is not your validation. Their realization is not your responsibility. Your only mission now is to keep expanding, to keep shining, to keep being the soul that doesn't just attract love, but creates it. So stand tall, walk in your truth. Let the universe use every heartbreak to sculpt you into someone unstoppable. Because the ones who couldn't stay will remember you, not as the one they left, but as the one who awakened them to what real love looks like. And when you reach that level of grace, my friend, you won't need anyone's return. You'll already have arrived home to yourself. Emotional stability is one of the most magnetic, transformative forces in human connection, especially in relationships where one partner struggles with avoidance. It's not about being emotionless or detached. It's about mastering your emotional energy so deeply that your peace becomes a mirror that exposes the instability in others. Emotional stability is power. It is quiet, unshakable, and radiant. It says, I can feel everything, but I am ruled by nothing. When an avoidant person distances themselves, they often do it because they feel overwhelmed by intimacy, by vulnerability, by the possibility of being seen too deeply. They seek control through detachment, but when they encounter someone who remains calm in the face of uncertainty, someone who doesn't chase or collapse, something inside them begins to shift. That emotional steadiness is foreign to them, almost spiritual. It feels like safety, not pressure. They may not recognize it at first, but later, when the silence grows heavy, they will remember the energy of peace you carried, the kind that made their chaos make sense for the first time. Emotional stability doesn't come from pretending things don't hurt. It comes from feeling everything fully and still choosing alignment over reaction. It's standing in the storm of someone else's fear and saying, I understand this isn't about me. It's refusing to internalize rejection as unworthiness. It's realizing that the moment you let someone's withdrawal determine your value, you surrender your power. Emotional mastery means you can love deeply without losing your center. You can experience someone's distance and not let it destroy your inner equilibrium. When you are emotionally stable, you don't chase closure, you embody it. You understand that your peace is not dependent on someone else's presence or apology. You become anchored in truth, not triggered by illusion. The avoidant, who is used to emotional volatility, begins to sense something they cannot manipulate: your serenity. It's a rare energy, one that invites reflection instead of reaction. You become a mirror in which they see their own avoidance clearly, and that awareness often comes with deep regret, because people remember how you made them feel, and peace is unforgettable. Emotional stability also means you've learned the sacred art of pause. You don't respond instantly to every withdrawal, every mixed signal, every silence. You breathe, you observe, you choose your response consciously. In doing so, you create emotional contrast. Your calm becomes the light against their shadow, and that contrast leaves a lasting impression. When someone walks away from stability, they eventually realize how rare it was. The world outside is noisy, reactive, uncertain. Your presence becomes a benchmark, a place they mentally return to long after they've left physically. It's not just about romantic love either. Emotional stability affects every relationship in your life. Friends, family, colleagues. It communicates, you can be yourself around me and I won't collapse under your truth. That kind of groundedness builds trust and respect. But with avoidance, it does something even deeper. It awakens yearning. They may run from closeness, but what they truly seek beneath the fear is emotional safety. When you embody that safety, without trying to fix or chase them, you trigger both admiration and regret, because you represented the peace they've always wanted but never knew how to sustain. To reach that level of emotional balance, you must learn to self-regulate. Meditation, breathwork, journaling, prayer, these aren't just practices, they are portals to presence. You start witnessing your emotions instead of being ruled by them. You begin to see how your nervous system shapes your reactions and how mastering it changes everything. You realize that the person who can stay centered during emotional storms is not only powerful, they're free. When an avoidant leaves, they expect emotional chaos. They expect anger, neediness, desperation. But when they see calmness, when they feel love without attachment, peace without pursuit, they are confronted with a kind of strength they can't forget. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, consistent, and divine. That is emotional stability, the silent force that commands respect, evokes memory, and plants a seed of transformation in the heart of those who once ran from your light. Self-respect and boundaries form the foundation of true emotional power. They are not walls built from pride or ego. They are sacred borders that protect your energy, your peace, and your purpose. In relationships, especially with avoidant individuals, self-respect is not just attractive, it's magnetic. It communicates without words. I know who I am. I know what I deserve, and I refuse to abandon myself in the name of love. That level of self-possession doesn't just create attraction, it leaves a deep, lasting impression that echoes long after you're gone. Avoidant individuals often struggle with intimacy because closeness feels like a threat to their independence. They pull away to preserve control, to protect themselves from the vulnerability they secretly crave but fear. When they step back, they subconsciously expect you to chase, to convince them of your worth, to show them you'll bend just to keep them near. But when you respond with grace, with boundaries, with calm detachment that says, I honor your space, but I will not beg for it, something within them shifts. It disarms the pattern. They start to feel the weight of your absence, not because you withdrew in anger, but because you held your dignity with strength and silence. Self-respect means understanding that love does not require you to sacrifice your peace. It means you can care deeply without losing yourself. You can show compassion without becoming a doormat. It's the inner knowing that your value isn't up for negotiation. When you embody that energy, you move from needing validation to embodying worth. That shift is profound. It communicates that you are whole, complete, even without anyone's approval. Boundaries are the living expression of self-respect. They're not restrictions, they're declarations of alignment. They say, this is how I honor myself. This is what I allow into my energy. A person with healthy boundaries doesn't punish or control. They simply don't participate in anything that violates their standards. And the truth is, people who are avoidant often test those limits, consciously or unconsciously. They pull away to see if you'll collapse, to see if you'll chase. But when you stay grounded and respond with calm assurance, when you allow them to go, knowing your worth isn't tied to their decision, you become unforgettable. It's not that avoidants don't feel love, they often feel it intensely. But love that comes with self-abandonment feels suffocating to them. Love that comes with stability and boundaries, however, feels safe, balanced, and powerful. Your self-respect gives them space to confront their own inner conflict. They may not be ready to face it immediately, but over time, they begin to realize that your strength was not rejection. It was truth. You didn't walk away because you didn't care. You walked away because you refused to betray yourself to earn someone else's presence. Self-respect also transforms how you move through loss. You stop seeing endings as failures and start seeing them as redirections toward greater alignment. You stop taking rejection personally and start recognizing that people can only meet you at the level of their own emotional capacity. That mindset frees you. It liberates you from the exhausting dance of proving, convincing, or chasing. You begin to embody a quiet confidence that speaks louder than any words. I am enough as I am. And that confidence stays in the memory of those who leave. Because people forget words, they forget promises, but they never forget how you carried yourself. When an avoidant reflects on the one who didn't chase, who didn't crumble, who simply walked away with grace and power, they feel the loss deeply, not because of guilt alone, but because they realize they left something real, something grounded, something they may never find again. To live with self-respect and firm boundaries is to live from alignment, not attachment. It's to stand in your own divine authority and trust that what's meant for you will stay without force. When you embody that truth, you become untouchable. Not in a cold or distant way, but in a way that radiates self-love and inner peace. You become the one who sets the standard, the one who teaches through your energy what real love feels like, love that honors both self and other. And that is the love no one ever truly gets over. Unconditional presence is one of the most healing and powerful energies a human being can embody. It means you can hold space for another person without judgment, without trying to fix them, and without attaching your sense of worth to their response. It is love in its purest, most elevated form. The kind that says, I see you exactly as you are, and I don't need to control your path to feel safe. When someone with an avoidant attachment encounters this level of acceptance, they often don't know how to handle it. They may pull away at first, but deep down, it touches something sacred within them. It's the kind of love that doesn't demand, it invites. And invitations like that leave a permanent mark on the soul. Most people mistake unconditional presence for self-sacrifice. They think it means tolerating neglect, waiting endlessly, or accepting behavior that diminishes their value. But true presence is the opposite of that. It comes from strength, not need. It's rooted in self-awareness and grounded in emotional maturity. It's the ability to love freely while remaining centered in your own being. When you can look at someone and say, I don't need you to be perfect for me to love you, and I don't need you to stay for me to be whole, you embody emotional freedom. And that freedom is magnetic. Avoidant individuals are often trapped in a cycle of fear, wanting closeness, but fearing it will consume them. When they meet someone who offers love without pressure, without control, it confuses their system in the best way. It's like their nervous system doesn't know how to process safety. They are used to love that demands, love that clings, love that says, prove your care, but unconditional presence is love that breathes. It gives space. It holds peace even when things feel uncertain. That kind of love does not chase, it trusts. It doesn't shrink in rejection, it remains compassionate. And that balance between care and freedom is what avoidants end up missing most. There's a deep spiritual strength that comes from being able to hold someone in your heart without needing to hold them in your hands. It's divine love, the kind that mirrors the universe itself, ever giving, ever expanding, never desperate. To embody this, you must be anchored in your own sense of worth. You cannot offer unconditional presence if you are seeking validation. It's not about losing yourself in another person's story. It's about standing fully in your own truth while witnessing theirs. You listen, you understand, you empathize, but you do not abandon your inner peace to accommodate their fear. This presence creates safety, not by speaking or convincing, but simply by being. You become a calm frequency in a world of noise. You radiate acceptance, not because you're naive, but because you know that love without attachment is the highest form of strength. It's not weakness to let someone walk away while holding love in your heart. It's mastery, because you've learned that connection cannot be forced, and love that is meant to stay will always return to peace. For the avoidant, this kind of energy is unforgettable. They may run from closeness, but they never forget the one who offered love without conditions. When the noise of the world quiets down, when their avoidance leads them into loneliness, they remember the feeling of being fully seen and not judged, loved, and not controlled. It's rare, it's disarming, and it becomes a point of comparison for every connection that follows. They realize too late that you were the safe space they didn't know how to receive. Unconditional presence also transforms you. It teaches patience, empathy, and detachment from outcomes. You start seeing relationships not as possessions, but as opportunities for growth and reflection. You learn that your role is never to fix or save anyone. It's to embody love so deeply that others feel permission to heal themselves. You understand that letting go with grace is sometimes the most loving act you can offer. When you reach that level of consciousness, your energy becomes medicine. Your peace becomes prayer. And those who once walked away from your stillness will eventually feel the quiet ache of what they lost. The love that asked for nothing, the presence that never wavered, the earth that stayed open even when the door closed. Because true unconditional presence is eternal. It doesn't end when someone leaves, it continues to ripple through time, reminding both you and them that love in its purest form never binds. It liberates. Inner growth and purpose transform heartbreak into awakening. They turn endings into beginnings and pain into power. When you focus on evolving instead of seeking validation, you shift from being defined by what happened to you to being defined by what you became because of it. Growth is magnetic. It's the silent transformation that happens when you decide that no one's departure will stop your destiny. It's the moment you choose to use rejection as redirection, to rise higher, to go deeper, to live truer. For the avoidant, this transformation becomes unforgettable, because when they look back and see how much stronger, wiser, and more radiant you've become, they realize they didn't just walk away from a person. They walked away from a force of becoming. Avoidant individuals often withdraw from emotional intensity because it exposes their insecurities. But when you channel your pain into purpose, you stop participating in the emotional push and pull. You no longer orbit around their fear, you rise into your own evolution. And that growth is not just visible, it's energetic. Your energy shifts from longing to creating, from waiting to becoming. You become a reflection of what healing looks like. While they run from their emotions, because you were too much, but because they were not yet ready for the depth you embodied. Your growth becomes their lesson. Your purpose becomes their mirror. And while they may carry regret for leaving, your focus is no longer on what was lost, it's on what was found. Your power, your peace, your divine alignment. Because once you've tasted the strength that comes from turning pain into purpose, you realize that no departure can diminish you. It only propels you toward becoming exactly who you were always meant to be. The energy of gratitude and forgiveness is the alchemy of the soul. It's what turns bitterness into wisdom, pain into compassion, and endings into freedom. When someone has hurt you, especially someone who pulled away, avoided intimacy, or chose distance over connection, it's easy to let resentment grow roots in your heart. But forgiveness is not about condoning their actions. It's about reclaiming your energy from the past. Gratitude is not about pretending everything was fine. It's about recognizing the divine purpose behind everything that happened. Together, forgiveness and gratitude become the twin forces that elevate you from victimhood to victory. Avoidant individuals often live in emotional fear. Fear of dependence, fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability. When they leave, they usually expect anger, bitterness, or blame. They expect to be the villain in your story. But when you respond with grace, when you choose forgiveness instead of revenge, and gratitude instead of regret, you shatter their expectations. You embody emotional mastery. You demonstrate that your love was never conditional on outcome. It was a reflection of your character, not their behavior. That kind of energy leaves an imprint that time cannot erase. Forgiveness is a spiritual act, not a logical one. It doesn't erase accountability, but it dissolves the emotional chains that keep you tied to the past. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison. and waiting for the other person to feel it. It depletes your spirit, drains your joy, and blocks your ability to receive new blessings. Forgiveness, on the other hand, releases you from that cycle. It says, I choose peace over pain. I choose freedom over attachment. I choose to let love, not bitterness, define my story. And then comes gratitude, the higher frequency that completes the healing. Gratitude allows you to look back and say, thank you for the lesson. It shifts your focus from what you lost to what you gained: wisdom, strength, self-awareness, and deeper compassion. Gratitude reframes every experience as a teacher. It turns heartbreak into holy ground. When you can thank someone for the role they played, even if it was painful, you transcend the level of consciousness where suffering lives. You begin to see the divine intelligence that guided every step, even the ones that broke you open. Avoidants often regret leaving those who reach this level of spiritual evolution, because when you operate in forgiveness and gratitude, your energy becomes light, literally and energetically lighter. You no longer carry resentment, you radiate grace. Your aura shifts from wounded to whole. You no longer need closure because you've become the closure. You no longer need apologies because your heart has already made peace. That kind of serenity is rare, and those who once caused the pain eventually feel its absence. They recognize, consciously or not, that your love was pure, that you released them not from indifference, but from understanding. Forgiveness also restores your power. As long as you hold on to resentment, your energy remains entangled with the person who hurt you. You may not speak to them, but emotionally, they still occupy space in your mind and heart. When you forgive, you reclaim that energy and redirect it toward your own growth. You stop orbiting around what happened and start moving forward with clarity and purpose. Gratitude amplifies that process, reminding you that every experience, even the painful ones, served your evolution. This energy doesn't just heal your heart, it transforms your life. Opportunities begin to flow more easily. Relationships become more peaceful. Your inner world becomes calm, because forgiveness clears the clutter of the soul, and gratitude fills it with light. And when you live in that vibration, you attract people and experiences that reflect that peace back to you. The avoidant who once left will sense this shift. They'll see that you're no longer bitter, no longer waiting, no longer wounded. You've forgiven, you've grown, you've thanked the universe, and you've moved forward with grace. That realization often hits deeply because they recognize the depth of your spirit. They realize they left someone who mastered the art of transcendence. To live in forgiveness and gratitude is to live free. It is to walk through life unburdened, open-hearted, and aligned with your higher purpose. It's the ultimate expression of power, because nothing and no one controls you anymore. You've taken what was meant to break you and turned it into your greatest awakening. And that kind of peace can't be taken away. It can only be remembered, admired, and for those who left, deeply regretted. Authenticity and integrity are the pillars of true inner power. They are what keep your soul aligned when the world tries to pull you out of yourself. In relationships, especially those involving avoidant individuals, authenticity becomes a light they can't ignore. It's the courage to show up as you are, raw, honest, unfiltered, and real, without performing for approval or shrinking to be accepted. Integrity is the commitment to stay true to that authenticity, even when it costs you connection. When you embody both, you move through love with clarity and confidence, and those who leave you eventually realize they walked away from something profoundly genuine in a world full of masks. Avoidant people often live behind emotional walls. They hide behind control, detachment, or independence because vulnerability feels dangerous. When they meet someone who is unapologetically authentic, it confronts their defenses. Your truth exposes their avoidance, not through confrontation, but through contrast. You express feelings openly. You communicate needs honestly. You don't manipulate, chase, or play games. You simply are, and that kind of realness is rare. They may not know how to handle it at first, but later, when life brings them face to face with superficial connections, they remember what real felt like. Authenticity is not about oversharing or demanding to be understood. It's about alignment, your inner truth matching your outer expression. It means your actions reflect your values, your words mirror your intentions, and your presence communicates self-respect. It's the energy of someone who says, "This is who I am. I won't pretend to be less to be loved more. That kind of wholeness doesn't chase, it attracts, because authenticity carries a quiet authority, a frequency of truth that resonates at the deepest level of human connection. Integrity takes that authenticity and turns it into action. It's easy to speak of self-love and boundaries, but integrity is living them. It's saying no when your soul says no, even if your heart wants to say yes. It's walking away when staying would mean betraying yourself. Integrity means you do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it costs you something you think you want. And that's why it's so unforgettable, because people can feel it. They can sense when you're living from truth instead of fear. When you operate with authenticity and integrity, you stop trying to prove your worth. You don't need validation from someone's approval or commitment. You know your value inherently. You speak with honesty, you love without agenda, and you move through life with transparency. That doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're real. And in a world built on facades and performance, realness becomes a revolution. Avoidant individuals often run from emotional truth because it requires vulnerability. But when they leave someone who embodies authenticity, they later feel the loss in a deep spiritual way, because you represented something pure, someone who didn't play games, who loved with openness, who stood in their truth even when rejected. Over time, they realized that your integrity was safety, your honesty was intimacy, your realness was love. And that kind of energy can't be replaced by temporary distractions or shallow affection. Authenticity also frees you. When you stop pretending, you stop carrying the weight of other people's expectations. You no longer have to manage perceptions or perform to keep someone comfortable. You live in your truth and attract people who resonate with it. Integrity protects that truth. It ensures that you don't compromise your peace just to belong. Together, they form a spiritual armor that shields you from manipulation, confusion, and emotional chaos. Living with authenticity and integrity also aligns you with purpose. You stop asking, "What do others want from me?" and start asking, "What is my soul calling me to do?" You become guided by inner wisdom instead of external approval. That clarity gives your presence depth. It makes your energy unmistakable. Those who leave may find others to fill their time, but they won't find another you. Because authenticity is not something people can replace. It's something they remember. When you stay true to yourself, you become both mirror and catalyst. You reflect truth back to those who fear it, and in doing so, you awaken them. They may not understand it right away, but one day they will realize that the rarest kind of love they ever experienced was not the one that conformed to their comfort, but the one that remained rooted in truth. Authenticity and integrity are not just virtues. They are frequencies of freedom, and those who lose someone who embodies them don't just lose a person. They lose access to a kind of honesty and depth that their soul will continue to seek long after the connection has ended. And so, my friend, remember this. Every experience, every heartbreak, every moment of letting go was never about loss, but about becoming who you were created to be. Those who walked away may one day feel the weight of what they left behind, but your purpose is not to be remembered. It's to rise, to shine, and to live in truth, love, and divine alignment. You are not defined by who left. You are defined by the power you discovered when you stood alone. Thank you for opening your heart, for walking this journey of awakening, and for daring to become the light that others will never forget.